Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nithin from the Nithin Sports Rush, back with another special episode here live. Before I introduce my guests, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for all the support over the years and growing this show and all the platforms I've been working with. So this week on our Job of the Mouse show, we had Chris Collier on our show the other day, and I said, why not have him on this show, the Nithin Sports Rush show? And I am joined by a special guest. He's a current NFL running back. He played for the Baltimore Ravens. He was undrafted. He's from Staten Island, New York, but now he's with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's learning from a great team, great organization. And he came from another great organization, which was the Baltimore Ravens. And he went to Nassau CC for college. Man, what a great story, amazing story. And without further ado, I am joined by Chris Collier, current NFL running back, and like I said let's bring him on here and learn more about his story and send it to our fans this way. So, Chris, thank you for joining. I know it's off season for you guys, but what's it been like for you during the off season? But first, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Yeah, it's been this is my second off season, so now I'm a little bit more organized and know what to do. My first one was a bit, interesting because it was my first off season. You have all this time. You go from a strict routine schedule to now it's like you just have free range to do whatever you want. And if you don't maximize your time the right way, it could catch up to you next season. And that's like the humbling part. That's where you see some guys like one and done, maybe like they get to their second year, but then they don't really falter after that. So you just got to be smart with your time.
Yeah, I forgot to mention. Chris also went to Wagner and Lock Haven for college, so he went to three different colleges, which we'll get to. But Chris, talk about for you. Obviously, your dream came true playing in the NFL. What's it like to focus on your one goal and make it come true, and now you're like an NFL running back?
Well, it's a blessing, man. You dream of this as a kid. You see, I grew up in the golden age, I feel like, personally, of football, where you were watching Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Reggie Bush, you got Megatron and all those other guys that you're watching, and you see that and you look up to guys like that. And it's just nice it's kind of surreal, if I could be honest, when you get on that field, because at some point it starts to feel like, this is like what it's supposed to be like. This is where I'm supposed to be. But when you're going up that mountainside trying to get to where you want to go, it just feels like a far long dream. But yeah, it's surreal and it's a blessing, and I count my blessings every day on it.
And especially you being from the New York area, Staten Island, New York, and obviously you have an amazing story coming up from there. And for you, how extra special is it for you from being from New York and getting a chance to play in the NFL?
Oh, it's a big accomplishment, especially to a lot of people back home. They see it that way. There's not really a lot of us, and I think from what I understand, I mean, I have my other New York guy on the team, Dylan Laube. He's from Long Island as well, and we both have grew up playing against each other. But I feel like we just don't have a lot of exposure. New York is really like under the radar in terms of college recruitment, but also like NFL talent. They don't really try to look for guys that come out of that area, the Northeast area. We're very slept on. So I just feel like this will hopefully, as I get more, time in the field, I can show what I could do. It'll give them a second look at guys in those areas, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, what made you choose to play football? Because you started at age 6 while you were playing at football. So, what did you play multiple sports, or were you?
I did.
Okay.
My parents put me in every single sport possible: soccer, football, basketball, hockey. Hockey was actually my first love before football, but we all have those Super Bowl parties. Your families usually have them, family, friends. And my first Super Bowl that I watched was the Giants versus the Patriots. It was the helmet catch. And I remember seeing that as a kid. That's just like, you have few moments that you remember as a kid. They're very scattered, but for some reason, that was like the one that really stuck with me in my mind. And that's when I started playing football that same year. And I just fell in love with the game ever since, honestly. And that's how I grew up a Giants fan, truly, to be honest.
That's awesome. And speaking of the helmet catch, that's one of my close friends, David Tyree. Shout out to David Tyree.
Shout out him, man. He's the reason.
Yeah. And shout out to Jacobs. I work with closely with most of the Giants, and one of my mentors is a former Giant, Lennon Marshall. He played in the '80s with Lawrence Taylor, so he's one of my mentors. And for you, speaking of the Giants, and obviously you mentioned on the other show, you were on our other show about Brandon Jacobs. Would you say you looked up to Jacobs? But what other running backs or what other players did you look up to growing up, other than the Giants players?
I watched a lot of the Giants growing up, so I could definitely say I did watch a lot of Brandon Jacobs. I wasn't built like him, so I couldn't really take his running style and his like skill set, but I could take Ahmad Bradshaw. Bradshaw was a real running back that I liked a lot. Reggie Bush when he was in college. I looked a lot of his tape, like his old tape, his USC highlights. Obviously, Barry Sanders. These are old guys, but I was really just like a film junkie. I love watching highlights, and I'm not really much of like guys like to do all the sophisticated fancy drills. I just like to look at film and then put it to practice in practice. And if it works in practice, then I'll put it to the game. If it's working the game, then it's one of my moves. So those are the guys I really looked up to.
Wow. Yeah, talk about your high school career, because senior year you set a record of rushing yards, over 1,000 rushing yards and 25 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about your high school career, and what was it like your senior year?
So my high school career was very up and down. My first year on varsity was my sophomore year. It was really just trying to get used to the level of play coming from, middle school and JV, obviously. My junior year was really when I blew up. I had about almost 800 yards in 3 to 4 games. I was getting all these looks before the season had started, and I ended up blowing out my knee. I tore my ACL, LCL, piece of my hamstring, and it was just like my whole leg was obliterated. And I really thought that was it. But that really drew my faith. It made me look to God in that moment to really get me out of that dark hole that I was in. And the next year, he blessed me with a great season, that senior season. And, the way the college business works is very political. And I can't blame him. You see a running back who blew out his knee. It's not good for business. Sometimes it's not worth the investment. Some guys, it's like a toss up if they come back from it or not. And, a lot of those guys saw that and they wanted to give me PWOs. And I didn't want to pay for college. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go JUCO. I'm going to shoot my shot, see where I could land. And that's when I got to Nassau, and the rest is, obviously history.
Yeah, speaking of that injury, obviously a lot of players now these days go through a lot of injuries, and it's amazing how they overcome it and get back on the field. That's the best moment. What I love to see when the athletes get back on the field. So talk about how tough is it for you at first dealing with the injury, but you worked hard at it. You came back strong, and look where you're at now, still playing the game. Just talk about the adversity of it.
Well, adversity is tough. You go through that depression. You get really depressed. You get you're couch ridden, especially with knee injuries like that or any lower body injury. Honestly, you were couch ridden for at least a month, and that can be tough to deal with because you start seeing your muscles shrink. You start having hypertrophy issues. Your muscles are not really as strong and stable as they used to be. You got to rely on crutches or a wheelchair, whatever the case may be. And it can be tough to go through moments like that, knowing how you were maybe a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. It messes with your mind, but it's important to really stay consistent in that, keep the faith, and just keep going. Honestly, that's the best way I could put it.
Yeah, talk about your JUCO career in Nassau. What did you learn over there? Getting better as a player, and obviously you went to Wagner, Lockhaven after. But just talk about your JUCO career.
My JUCO career really humbled me, to be honest. It's like this with a lot of high school athletes when you get into the college realm, where you're not the guy anymore. There's a whole bunch of guys on that team that were the guy, especially at JUCO or those high Division I schools. And that's just really what it comes down to. You got to lower yourself. You got to put the pride away, put the ego away, start working on that work ethic, because that work ethic does make the difference at those levels. And the talent does come into play at certain points, but a lot of the time, if you want to get to where you want to get to, it takes a lot of work. And, I had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations, not only with football, but off the field, because JUCO, you don't get anything really handed to you financially. You don't get any financial benefits from it. You don't get no dorm and you don't get no food. You got to find a way to find your living situation at 18. And then you also got to find a way to feed yourself. So that meant I had to go through my days were usually, this really happened my sophomore year because my freshman year, I was trying to get into it. My parents were helping me a little bit, but my sophomore year was really when I had to become a man. And that's when, I'd wake up at 4 a.m., go do workouts, 4 to 6, 6 to 7, I'm commuting to school, 7 to 3, I'm at school, 4 to 6, no, 4 to 5 was meetings, 5 to 7 was, practice. And then 8 to 12, I was working in retail. I was doing the closing shift. And if I didn't have that, I'd do UberEats or Instacart. Just like maybe 1 or 2 orders to feed myself that night, get some KFC or McDonald's, and that was
Wow.
it.
Wow.
But
What is? Hmm.
that's really how I had to go through it in JUCO. It really made me a man, to be honest.
Yeah, and like, how did you balance all that? I mean, it's only 24 hours in a day, but it seemed like you were able to balance, and that's what a story. That's an inspiring story, and I'll give you a quick example. I work with I'm good friends with JC Escara, the Yankees catcher, and I
Hmm.
work with him closely, and he had a similar route where he worked as an Uber driver,
Hmm.
and now he's the Yankees catcher. So, but just talk about you. How did you balance all that? And obviously, it's really inspiring what I just heard.
Thanks, man. Balancing that is tough because something's got to give. You only have three things that it's your school, um, your social, and then whatever else you have time for. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, because I feel like this made a difference. I had to cut out a lot of my social life. That's when I just had to have tunnel vision, look at where I'm trying to get to, and just say football, God, and whatever I have to do to make sure this football dream is still going on. And that was Uber Eats and my retail job. So I just had to look at those, look at the bigger picture. A lot of guys are really looking at what circumstances they're going through right now. But if you look at those circumstances and see what it could become, if you keep working at it, and that just makes a difference. That's truly what makes you get to where you want to go.
Wow. Talk about your Wagner stint because that was around COVID time, around
Mm,
2020 and that was tough for everyone when everything got shut down, and
yeah.
and also you was dealing with some injuries too with the concussion and
Mhm.
everything. But just talk about that year when you went to Wagner and how tough was that for you just to get that started.
Um, yeah, Wagner was that was an interesting part of my football journey. That was actually like the time where I was really, seeing if this is really what I wanted to do with football. I had already went through hell and back with JUCO, but this just felt like a different realm of what I was going through. And I was blessed because it was a full scholarship. I got to look at my blessings, the blessings in disguise, which was a full scholarship. I didn't have to worry about food anymore. I had somewhere to lay my head. And but it was just tough because you had COVID, so you didn't really have the time to prepare. The preparation was a little off the charts. It wasn't what a lot of athletes are usually used to. And when we got back to the football state of it's weird with these depends on what FCS school you go to, but there's a lot of money games that you do play. Obviously you play the Power Five or the Group Five schools, but when I was at Wagner, we played about I played 8 games there. About 4 of them were Power Five / Group Five schools, and it was just games where we were just getting beat up on, and it's just like these are the first 2 to 3 games of the season, and we're just getting pummeled. Guys leaving on stretchers, guys can't play the rest of the season because we're just outmatched physically, and it was just a time where I was going through those concussions because of what was going on, and I was just like, this can't be what God has planned. It got to a certain point where I had just kind of got fed up. I'm not going to talk too much on it because Wagner is turning around. I'm very grateful for what they did in my college career in terms of, getting me uh, a degree. But essentially, it just got to a point where I just had enough and I just wanted to go out on a bang. I didn't want to look at football as like, I don't want my kids playing this. I don't want my kids playing this. I just didn't want this to be a generational, type of thing where I just withhold that sport from them. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
when I left.
But speaking of career breakout, at Lock Haven. That's where you broke out. You had a career season. And I feel like that's when you got back to the top, and Lock Haven helped you out unlock some things as a running back. And
Mhm.
let's talk about that. And I think that must have been special for you when you got another chance at Lock Haven. And you, like you said, you had a breakout season in 23. Talk about
Yeah.
that season.
Yeah, I got to shout out, Coach Mo, Coach B, Coach P, all my coaches for real, Coach Sullivan. Those guys put a lot of confidence into me just off my first visit. It brought my love and spark back because of, I feel like in this college game, a lot of coaches make promises and sometimes they don't really deliver on them for the most part. Sometimes, they get kind of put to the wayside, but these guys all made me a promise and they all delivered on it. They gave me every opportunity to make the most of what that season was going to be. And, you know, by the grace of God, I had the season that I did, All American, all the fancy accolades and all that. And I was really, when I went into that season, I just wanted to go, like I said, off with football with a bang. Honestly, I just wanted to have a good season. And then if life started after that, I would have been fine. And truthfully, the way God had it work out was completely different. I graduated from Wagner with a magna cum laude. So I had like a 3.8 GPA, 3.9. And after the Lock Haven season, after going All American and all that, I started applying to nursing school because I was ready to just start my next chapter of life. And my coach told me, "Hey, look, the Giants wanted to come and see you." I was like, "Giants? They want to come to the middle of Pennsylvania and see me physically?" And I got excited about that, but it ended up falling through. Like they never came through, but it just felt like a foreshadow of what direction God wanted me to go through towards. And I remember I was a little stubborn on it. I was trying to go back. I was trying to get another year because of all the concussions I dealt with at Wagner. And I got that declined. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna give it a shot. I didn't really have no plan going into it. One of my good friends actually introduced me to a trainer out in Penn State that actually didn't really deal with pro day guys. He just trained high school kids and that was it. But I was like, hey, I just need help in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what I'm doing, but I just need a trainer. I've never had a trainer in my life. And he took me under his wing and he really blessed me. And I was really going through it financially. I didn't have the means to pay for it all. I remember I tried to apply to Wendy's to
Yeah.
start this pro day prep. And it was like I was overqualified. I was like, damn, if I can't get a job at Wendy's, where can I get a job
That's
at?
crazy.
And he ended up having a good friend out in Lock Haven that, I went to his house. I told my story and he just blessed me financially.
Wow.
He paid for the training, he paid for my groceries, and he gave me a whole bunch of venison, which was my main diet.
Okay.
A whole pro day prep. It was venison and rice,
Wow.
because that's really all I had.
Yeah.
And I was just training day in and day out. I blew the pro day out of the water. And now that was that, man. That's really how it went at Lock Haven.
So the diet. I'm just curious. Yeah. So for the pro day, that they give you one specific diet and you just stick with it, huh?
Oh
Or
no, that was because of the
oh,
blessing of my trainer's friend. That's all he really had to give me at that moment because he was a hunter. So he had just a whole bunch of pounds of venison, which is like deer meat, very protein rich. And, I'm a broke college kid. I didn't really have much to really supply myself. So shoot, I'll eat it. That was really all I was eating during that pro day prep. And that's really I'm not going to say that's what made the difference. The training obviously helped, but I feel like a protein rich diet definitely does help you in that moment.
that's amazing. Yeah. And speaking of Lock Haven, you also were a nominee of the Harlan Hill Trophy, and you were named one of the best players in Division two in college. So talk about what was that like getting honored, being a nominee of the award, and also being mentioned as the best player in the Division two.
It was surreal, coming from where I came from in terms of, going through what I went through at Wagner. I didn't really see that happening. So everything that I got, I just looked at as a blessing. And I was just really grateful for all the accolades that came through, the grace that God had with everything that I, had suffered from. He still made a way when it just seemed like there was no way. So I was just very happy, grateful, and just, in awe of God's power and will, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah, and obviously you didn't get drafted. You were undrafted, and you went to the Baltimore Ravens. But let's talk about well, how tough is it for you and your family that you didn't get drafted, but you had the opportunity to choose a team that you wanted to go to, and just talk about the draft process and obviously getting an opportunity with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, so being a small school guy, you don't really have that, especially Division two. You don't really have that projected draft. You probably have some aspirations of it, obviously, as anybody would. And sometimes your agent may say, hey, you may go, da da da. I got a couple like, hey, you may go late round, possibly, but I just knew, sometimes you got to be realistic. You got to be realistic. I was like ranked like maybe like the 50th running back in that class. And, I was just grateful for any opportunity that came across my door. Obviously, I had a little family festivity, and I was a bit embarrassed. I was getting some secondhand embarrassment from not being caught. I had all my family here. Everybody drove to Lock Haven in the middle of nowhere to celebrate this moment with me. And it was just like the rounds were going by. And obviously I knew not to watch day one and day two, but I was watching real heavily on day three with the late rounds. And, my name obviously never got called, but then I think I got a call the seventh round when the Baltimore Ravens were on the clock. And I was like, oh my gosh, because they were the only team that actually sent me a package. And I had thought that that was going to be the team that was going to draft me, quote unquote. But, obviously they called me. They wanted to get a jump on the gun because they knew I had a couple other teams interested from the pro day results. I had about like 28 out of the 32 teams interested, so they got to jump on the gun. And obviously, I stuck to my gut and I went with the team that took a chance on me first. Why not? I wasn't really concerned about the money. I just wanted an opportunity, and that's why I went the Ravens. And it was a blessing because I got to meet Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, all them boys, John Harbaugh, play with
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson. Like I just got to meet all these great guys that you see on TV. You watch them, and then you're able to be in the locker room, chill with them, do X, Y, and Z with them. It's surreal. So I was very glad about getting that opportunity to go there.
and before we get to your Ravens and your pro, I want to get to your pro day too. But before we get to that, speaking of John Harbaugh, now he's coaching your favorite team, the Giants.
Yeah.
For you, how special was it for you to learn throughout the season underneath Coach Harbaugh, and obviously you got to learn from one of the best running backs in the game, and Derrick Henry.
Hmm.
So, what was that like for you, just to have a coach that brings winning mentality and and he brings his own style, and obviously he's going to do great with the Giants. But just talk about the John Harbaugh effect that had on you.
I got very spoiled in that sense. It showed me what it was like to be in a successful organization, and it makes me look at what it takes. You see the training. Like I feel like personally, I haven't been in all the conferences, but from my understanding, I heard that the AFC North training camps are always the hardest, and rightfully so. I went through it my rookie year, and it was a lot. We were hitting every day. We were going at it, and it was just like the constant go 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 mentality. Walking like that was for real. And John Harbaugh was real gritty about it, and he brought a lot of knowledge, obviously, to the table, especially in the special teams department, because that's where he was at originally. And obviously, if you want to make your own path in the NFL, you got to start, especially if you weren't like a early round guy, like day one starter. You got to make your path through special teams. So he brought a lot of knowledge in that. He gave me opportunities on kick return with the Ravens that really, helped at least give me that film and extend my career as long as it is right now,
That's
truthfully. So
amazing.
I'm very grateful to that, man.
Yeah, and Derrick Henry, did you ask him for advice when you were
Oh
there?
yeah, all the time. He was very helpful. He was humble, and he was a great mentor, especially for me because at some point, I remember when I had gotten elevated my first time, it was really just me, Derrick Henry, and Justice Hill in a room for about 9 to 10 weeks. So I learned so much from that man. Obviously, I can't emulate his play style, his running style. He's 6'3", 260. He's built like a daggone defensive end, but I got to see the way he makes his reads. He gave me a lot of pointers on how to, hit the hole, how to be patient in certain circumstances. I just took that with me to my next journey. It's helped me out a lot.
Yeah, and I want to get to your numbers at the Pro, but you crushed it. You had a 4.48 40-yard dash, and you had a 6.78 during the cone drill. You killed the Pro day, and obviously you brought up the diet. But this talk about how the Pro day itself, and obviously the number. We don't worry about the numbers, but just talk about
Yeah.
the successful Pro day that you had going in.
Going in, I was like anybody is. I was kind of nervous, especially since I kind of got granted this pass because Lockhaven obviously wasn't going to have its own pro day. We were like a D2 small school. No one was going to come in the middle of Pennsylvania to watch maybe like one or two kids go. But Temple gave me that invite and really gave me an opportunity. And when I got in there, it's funny because I got into a room with all these FBS guys. And, I'm seeing them run. I'm hearing the time because they're calling out the times out loud. I'm like, damn. I'm like, yo, they're a lot slower than I thought. Now, it was probably just Temple. I don't want to crap on Temple or anything like that. But it was just the fact that you're in a field with a bunch of FBS Group 5 guys, Power 5 guys, and you're running the same time as them. You're jumping just as high, you're lifting just as much. It just brought me that confidence, like, hey, I belong. And that was really just a turning point in making this whole thing happen. When I saw that and I experienced that, it opened my eye. I was like, oh wow, this is really what it's like. It's not really all. You look at these guys when you're at the bottom like Greek gods. You're like, wow, these guys. Dang, I wish I was them. But you are right there. It's not really a matter of who you are, but it's really a lot of times who you know. That's really how a lot of these guys get that exposure, where you came from, and that's just really what it comes down to.
Yeah, um, and going back to, did you ever? So you signed a 3-year deal with the Ravens, but did you ever think you were going to stay with the Ravens a long time? I know the NFL is a business, but did you ever think you could have stayed there a long time when you signed that deal?
It's funny because when I got there and they blessed me with putting me on the practice squad, I definitely thought if I was on the practice squad for maybe if I was on the practice squad the whole year, I probably would have been with the Ravens about 2 years, and it probably would have cut my career short, truthfully, because I would have had no film. I wouldn't have really had any quote unquote game experience if I would have been on the practice squad the whole time. Like, yeah, I may have been on the Ravens another year or two, but I wouldn't have been in the league another year or two. And because they had to elevate me so soon, and because they had to sign me to the active roster so soon and have me actually play in between the white lines and gave me that opportunity, that's really what extended my career. It may have not been with them, but it was with another team and it was with the Raiders. And I'm just very grateful again to Harbaugh and the Ravens for even giving me that opportunity in the first place.
Yeah, talk about your NFL debut. You made your NFL debut with the Ravens against the Dallas Cowboys, a historic franchise, and
Yeah.
talk about that being elevated for that game and playing against another good team.
Oh, it's funny. NFL's funny with how it works with these elevations because that week I was getting a lot of praise for how I was running in practice against, when you're a scout team running back, obviously you got to go against the number one defense, and Harbaugh was giving me a lot of praise, and so was DC. So they told me I was traveling that week, and I was like, oh, they might just be rewarding me, and I was very happy. I was giddy. I was like, oh shit, I get to travel and see a good game, and then out of nowhere I see on social media. I think my mom sent it to me. She was like, the Ravens have elevated Chris Collier. I was like, whoa, I'm playing in this game. I thought I was just going to watch it. I'm close. And I didn't get a lot of reps that week, but they definitely wanted to put me in at some point on special teams, and I ended up getting like one special team snap, and it was just like I'm playing against Dallas Cowboys at the mecca of all football stadiums, and it was just surreal. I was very, very grateful for that experience.
Yeah, so Now you go to the Las Vegas Raiders, and obviously in 2024 you had Antonio Pierce as the head coach, um,
Hmm.
and then 25 you had Pete Carroll. But talk about the 20 once you got onto the roster, the 24 roster, and you were you didn't play that much, but you're learning the game still. And just talk about what was it like learning from Antonio Pierce as a head coach, and I'm sure you watched him growing up as a Giant fan.
Yeah, I did. I did. It was cool, seeing him as a kid on those Super Bowl teams, and then obviously getting coached by him. I was very what is it called? I don't want to say starstruck. I don't want to seem like a fanboy, but he was on one of my favorite teams growing up, so it was pretty cool. I obviously told him that, and we were pretty cool. He gave me my first opportunity again. I think it was against the Saints. He actually brought me up to the active roster, so that was another good thing. And he gave me my first opportunity against the Saints. He was like, "Hey, you're going in on 4 minute." We were only up by like a touchdown, and he put me in on 4 minute to try to get the first down. But obviously I didn't get it. But he obviously had a lot of faith in me and grew my confidence and just feeling like I belong. To be honest, coming from a small school, you get kind of like shy about it because I remember when I was lining up and I see Tyrann Mathieu across coming down, ready to fill the A gap because we're running duo. I'm like, wow. When I was a corner, I watched his tape like relentlessly all the time. The Honey Badger when he was at LSU, yeah. So it was pretty cool to like line up and see him coming down. Like, oh wow, I'm really across the ball from this guy. Yeah. So I'm really grateful, obviously, to Antonio Pierce for giving me the opportunity as well.
Yeah, and then for you, obviously, you can see both sides of the field because you play deep defensive back throughout your career too. Also,
Mm,
so did you? Would you say it was easy for you just to look from playing both sides of the ball? It's easier for you.
yeah, it helps you see what the defense may do, what gaps the linebackers may be filling. It also helps seeing what the front is and knowing what your read has to be, depending on which technique the defensive tackle is in, what shade the nose guard is in. It really just helps deciding. It takes away the middleman of a read, so that you don't have to look at extra step. You could just read and react.
So 2024, obviously, and I really thought they were going to give the full term and head coaching job to Antonio Pierce, but you go from him to Pete Carroll. But
Mm,
before I get to that, I was actually last year, and when I was in New Orleans for Super Bowl week, um, I was with Max Crosby. I got to
mhm.
connect with Max Crosby last year in New Orleans. What a great guy!
Great dude,
Great
amazing.
being. For you, what's it like being his teammate?
Oh, it's great. He's all go, all go, all times. Literally, his motor doesn't stop. I got blessed to have the opportunity to even train with him in the off season before this past season that went through. We did a lot of boxing. There was boxing classes that we did, and it was pretty dope to see that other side of him. Like he's a killer on and off the field. He could really kill anybody he wants to. And it was even better when you're on the field. And I was a skeleton running back this past year. And just being able to go against the number one defense and just seeing what Max does because the way he practices exactly the way he plays. Sometimes you got some practice all stars, but he is far from it. Whatever he does in practice, he's doing in the game tenfold. He's jumping over guys, jumping over blockers, evading blockers and getting to the running back. So it's pretty cool to, try to evade him in a way, see what I could do. And, he really helped in that aspect of just making me better as a football player on and off the field.
Wow, yeah, he is. I'm glad that he signed that extension with the Raiders, and that he deserves everything. And like I said, when I connected with him last year in New Orleans, we just talked for a little bit. He was busy that day, so we just talked for a little bit, got
Hmm.
connected, and but he was awesome. But for you, you went from John Harbaugh to Antonio Pierce to Pete Carroll, three great football minds. And what
Hmm.
did you? Obviously, you didn't play that much this year, and you got cut, but you got signed back recently, which is
Hmm.
cool for your futures contract. But let's talk about what did you learn from Pete Carroll this year or last year going into this year, and also you got to see Aston Genty
Yeah. My
continue to grow.
dog.
Back. Yeah.
Yeah. I learned a lot from Pete. He's very competitive mind, so we competed in every aspect, whether it was on the field or off the field. We did a lot of he had a basketball hoop in the team meeting room, and a lot of our competitive nature in terms of like when we watch film and stuff like that, a lot of it sometimes came down to shooting hoops. Whenever whoever we thought won the rep, it would come down to competing in another way. And that was just his main mindset. He was always optimistic, and I love that about him because he was very positive and genuine soul. He just wanted the best from everybody, and great leader, great mind, a lot of football IQ, just a great person, great individual in general. That's just like the minimum of what I could say about Pete Carroll, but there's just so much more I could say that I could keep going on and on.
Yeah, and speaking of Ashton Genty, I know you came and then you learned from Derrick Henry, but what have you seen from Genty's game that can obviously he's going to be he's a star already in the league, but
Yeah.
do you think he can elevate his game to like I'm not going to say Derrick Henry, but can he be like that?
He's 101. I
Yeah,
believe he's a generational talent. He has the he has a compact size with the speed, with the agility. He just is everything you want in a running back and more. He has the hands on top of that too. So he could pass protect, he could catch, and he could run between the tackles, but he could also bounce it outside if there's nothing there. He's just an all around playmaker. Great dude, great soul, very humble, to the T, and he's a man of God. That's really what we've connected on a lot. A lot of our conversations have come down to off the field, but when it's on the field and we're talking in the film room, he's giving me pointers as a young buck. He's like 2-3 years younger than me, but he's giving me game that I didn't know coming into the league, and it's really helped me out a good amount.
wow. And talk about the fan base and the Ravens they have a great fan base from both in Baltimore, and they have a great
Mhm.
fan base in Las Vegas, and they're continuing to build their fan base because they
Yeah.
moved from Oakland to Las Vegas. And let's talk about the fan bases both teams that you played with, especially.
Um, Extreme, very loyal, very loving, especially when you're doing good, obviously. They're big markets. They have a lot of, diehard fans that you see, like everybody. Like, I think it's more on the Raiders because we have the black hole and just guys that do like the face painting and shoulder pads and the spikes out of shoulder pads and the mask, and to be wearing that in that Las Vegas heat. I mean, it takes a different type of soul, especially when we're having the season that we just had. To still be doing that, it takes a lot, man. So it's very passionate, very extreme, but very loving as well. You could tell they love the team that they picked. And as a player, you could do nothing but just be very grateful towards that.
Yeah, and obviously the Raiders have a great owner, front office staff, and obviously with Mark Davis and Tom Brady now being the Marnie owner. Just to talk about having a guy like Tom Brady in the building, just the wealth and knowledge of that. I don't know if you met or connected with him
Yeah,
yet.
I did.
You did, but what have you learned so far? Him being the owner.
He's very passionate. He has a lot of football knowledge, more than anybody could even really imagine. The way he talks about the game, the way he approaches the game, not only as a player but also off the field, the amount of insight he has to give. It's just about how you receive it, and the way he is as an owner. It's great. He was in the building a good amount. He was there. He was giving us those especially in the beginning when training camp was getting a little tough. He came in and that just sparked the guys up again and made them want to keep going harder and harder. Even though the results didn't show that, I'm sure from my perspective at least, we were working our tail off day in and day out. And, when it got tough and he came in, he talked to the guys that just lit another spark in us. So yeah, he's a great football mind, great person, great dude, great individual.
No. Yeah, I got to ask about you. The one thing I noticed about you, you don't wear gloves when you play football.
I
You're
can't.
tell us when did that start? Because I'm just curious because I noticed that. So
That really started when I was remember when I first started playing football. I think it was like my second year. My mom had bought me these pair of gloves, and I had a terrible game. I remember, I think I was like 9 years old. It was a night game. I don't know what got into me that game, but I remember these gloves that I had. And every time I touched the ball, I was just fumbling. I was 9 years old, and it was just like slipping out. I don't know if I think it was because it was like drizzling out, and you're not supposed to wear gloves in rain. I just kept losing the ball. So then I remember I took off one glove. Next time I played a game, I tried to play with one glove, and it was still kind of weird. So I was like, you know what? Let me just take off both and just not wear them. And that's really just what it came down to. I mean, I played like that since I was young, and now like when I try to put on gloves, I may put it on when I know I may be going down on kickoff or something like that to tackle somebody just to save my fingers for the high speeds. But to me, I don't know if you've ever seen the way that dogs walk when you put on shoes for them with the first time, but that's just how it feels when I put on gloves. I can't stand it. I can't do it. And guys look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, how could you carry the football and with these big dudes and get tackled by them and not feel like that? But I feel like you start to develop some scar tissue, some real hard. You know how like UFC fighters, they train their shins because of the way they be kicking. I just feel like the same thing's happening with my metatarsals, whatever you want to call these bones on my hands.
And
That's
also,
really what it comes
and
down
also
to.
or you grow the hands even more, like when you're lifting a weight or lifting a
You
barbell
strengthen them.
without
Yep.
gloves or without using something. You get
hmm
stronger. The calluses get stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah. To a couple more things before I let you go, and this has been awesome. And talk about. I gotta say, what is your favorite music to warm up to? Your favorite jam to get ready before a game, and also your favorite pre-game meal and favorite post-game meal.
Ooh. Man, this is making me reach into the subconscious of my mind. That's not something you can really say off the top of the dome. I'm a avid I listen to all genres, but for some reason, like even when I'm lifting or I'm about to go play football and hit a whole bunch of humans at 20 mile per hour speed, you can't really listen to anything soft. So I get into a lot of metal and rock. That's like for some reason that's just really what gets me going. A lot of 3 Days Grace, a lot of Earshot. Those are things that I like to listen to. Pre-game meals. I like a protein shake. I like to keep it light because it's about the way the league is. I mean, you have ample amount of time to eat whatever you want, but I like to keep it light. I like to get it out of my system early. And with a protein shake, you make it with banana, milk, Greek yogurt. You could put a whole bunch of things and get a whole bunch of calories and get it down quick. So that's what I usually like to do. And then post game, I just pick out. I will eat Wingstop, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, all the whole nine, or whatever soul food restaurant I could get my hands on. That's really what I go to post game. And then we started back on Monday. I go to the steam room, get it all the toxins out that I ate from McDonald's, all the processed crap. Make sure to hit the workout hard, and then it's just my 1 day cheat meal. That's usually how I go about it.
Yeah. So last few things here. What would you say to your younger self now? And also, what would you like to promote anything on here?
Oh yeah. This goes hand in hand, promoting and telling my younger self because they really needed it. Keep the faith. Always look to God to get you out of any turmoil you may be facing. Because I faced a lot, but a lot of kids coming up, especially today with the way college recruitment is and getting out of college to try to go to the next level, you deal with a lot of trials and tribulations. So keeping the faith, um, staying true to the process, and just don't give up. Look at the bigger picture and just keep going.
Well said, and thank you again, Chris Collier, Las Vegas running back, Las Vegas Raiders running back, and man, continued success. So I'll definitely, obviously, we'll be following your journey career. Let's stay
Mhm.
connected and let's do events together with
Amen.
Arrow and all during the off season. And I hope you get more playing time this season, next season.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
whoever they bring in as the new head coach, I hope they put you in multiple dime packages with S and Genty at the same time. I want to see Chris Collier and Genty in the game at the same time, dime package or whatever they want to do. But keep up the great work, and this was amazing. And obviously, you did great with the other show, but that's why I wanted to bring you on here to help you out to grow, so our fans can know about you too. So thank you
Thank you,
again.
brother.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chris.